In this video, we're going to demonstrate how to replace a bearing on a main shaft in a CBC 4000. First, what we'll do is remove the side panel and then proceed to removing the bolts on the sliding door on one of the sides. So when replacing a bearing on a main shaft, usually it can be on either side. In this case, it's on the side without the sprockets and without the chains. Regardless of which side you are replacing the main bearing, you still have to take off the sliding door. And that is why you see in this video, we are removing the hinge support bracket on one of the sides. Once you carefully remove the hinge support bracket on one of the sides, you can proceed to removing it on the other side. And in this case, on the side with the sprocket and the chains, you have to remove a hydraulic lever joint from the hinge support bracket itself first. Once the hydraulic lever joint is removed from the sliding door, the last bolt that we have to remove is from the pivot point. And once that's removed, you can now pull out the panel from the machine. At this point, we can now get started on raising the shaft so that we can replace the bearing. The first step is removing the pillow blocks from the main shaft. As you can see, we have pillow blocks on both sides. And what we have to do is we unscrew these long screws, and what this will allow us to do is raise the shaft and replace the bearing. Once these long screws are removed, we can now loosen the set screws on the main shaft. And what this does is it helps the shaft unlatch from the bearing. Once we do that, we can now raise the shaft, remove the pillow block, and then now we can loosen the screws on the bearing itself. Once the screws are removed from the bearing, you can now carefully remove the bearing on the main shaft. Once the old bearing is removed, you can now add the new bearing. Once the bearing is carefully positioned, you can now start adding the screws and hand tightening them all together. Once they're all hand tightened, you can now use a power drill to fully tighten them onto the shaft. Once the bearing is fully tightened into position, you can use Loctite to tighten the set screws into place and make sure the main shaft is secured with the bearing. Once the set screws are tied in, you can now add in the pillow blocks again, and then you can lower the shaft into position. At this point, we can start screwing the pillow blocks back into place on both sides. Ensure that the pillow blocks are fully tightened into place. Once both pillow blocks are fully tightened, you can now verify that the machine is running smoothly with the new bearing installed. Thank you for watching.